It seems like these days everyone thinks they're going to get rich buying and dealing Pokemon cards, or that their old cards are worth a ton. But is that even close to true? Are these cards even that valuable? Pokemon card collectibles are worth different values depending on the frequency of use within competitive play, the age of the card, the number of cards printed, and a variety of other factors. But they seem to be going up in value a lot, especially post-COVID. In a report published by Market Decipher, the market size for collectibles as a whole was estimated to be $360 billion in 2020, jumping to $402 billion in 2021, and is expected to cross the $1 trillion mark by 2032. One of those areas seeing the largest amount of growth and feeding this evaluation? Trading cards. So if you're wondering why some Pokemon cards seem to be growing in value, the collectible market as a whole has been growing, and that's a big part of it. Pokemon cards and their seemingly ever-growing hype can also be boiled down to renewed nostalgic interest in the vintage trading cards and their perceived value as a financial asset. Furthermore, the decreasing supply and wild demand for mint condition cards from that limited 1999 to 2003 printing run, along with social media influencers like Logan Paul making money off cards, is just fueling the fire. And that last part is what I think is skewing people's idea of what they have. They see these YouTubers just ripping tons of packs and grading all their hits and throwing little graphics up saying how much they made. Or they see YouTubers who are exclusively dealing in rare cards where they buy tons of Charizards to grade and are searching for cards worth money. But they either have a bunch of expendable income and don't mind the risk, they aren't showing you the times they take losses, and on top of that they're using the video profits to fund these purchases and maybe even cover their losses. Very, very few people are becoming rich solely on Pokemon. Going out and buying a pack of Pokemon cards at your local store will not make you the next Pokemon card millionaire. However, if you happen to have cards from 1999 to 2003, and some of them happen to be first editions, and you protected those cards really, really well over the years, it might be worth pulling them out and checking their value. Another thing I see a lot is the value of these cards. It's being misinterpreted. I see so many people on these local sites selling their cards or posting them online, and they just have them wildly misvalued. And I think part of that is they see like one card sold on eBay for a crazy amount that was just so out of the realm of the other cards, they try to match that price, not realizing it's an outlier. And a lot of people I see listing ungraded cards for the price of a graded 10. Now, some of them are just misguided. They're not accounting for the fact that you don't know what a card will grade for until it grades. That grading costs money. And then when you do grade it and you sell it, you probably use eBay or some other auction site. You have to pay a percentage to that site. And then if it sells for a really good amount, you're going to have to pay taxes on that. But they just see the number of what their card's worth, see that they actually have probably a very nice card, and they're listing it for that without actually going and getting it graded themselves. Other people, I think, might just not understand truly what they have, and they just think they have a really expensive card, and they're going for it. Now, usually these cards sit on those sites unsold, but every time I see one, I kind of fear that some kid's parent who desperately wants to make their kids happy and knows that's the card they want, or they're looking for a specific card, go out and buy that overpriced one thinking they found a super rare deal because it's advertised as a PSA Mint 10 card or will grade mint, and they just don't understand the process yet, and they end up overspending on one of these cards. The other trend I see is people selling lots of cards. When you actually look at these lots, sure, there's some hollows in there, but they're all worth 50 cents to $2 on eBay. And again, my worry here isn't that someone's going to go buy this thinking it's a hit if they know what they're doing. It's some kid's parent who's trying to start them off with, a bunch of cards and thinks that this is a great deal. Or someone who just saw a YouTube video about flipping cards and hasn't done a lot of research into it and is going to get hosed. And again, that would be their own fault, but I just hope people don't fall for these scams. Now, speaking of selling cards on eBay, I have sold a few $100s worth of Pokemon cards this year. And from my experience, very few cards will sell for what you think they will. Most will be around $1 or less, but you have to take into account that eBay takes a commission. And you also have to ship the cards properly. And yes, you can pass that cost off onto the buyer. I have my cost for shipping a card down to less than 14 cents at this point, between the sleeve and the hard sleeve, and then tape and whatever other shipping costs you need. But how many cards from a pack you open can you really sell? And are you really making a profit on that? A former buyer from a collector shop said, When I worked at a card shop, we got booster boxes cheaper than you ever will, and we're able to sell single cards at better prices than you will ever get. We still never ever open packs to get singles. The average value of a single in a box of Pokemon is always worth less than the cost of the box at wholesale. It might be very temporarily higher at release, but the prices of single cards will fall faster than you can sell them. The modern era Pokemon singles market is terrible. You get 3 secret rares in a $550 case. They average in value about $20 each. You get about 10 ultra rares, average value $4, and nothing else in the case is likely to be worth more than $3. So that $550 case nets $100 in easy to sell desirable cards, $20 to $30 in the $1 to $3 card range that might sell, and a whole bunch of nickel and quarter cards that are not worth the labor to pull. Those videos where people open boxes for profit are almost universally done at initial release, and they are often quoting the TCG player average pricing, which is a price you can only get in a store. The real price you can expect to sell card for online is the TCG player low price, with a 12.9% commission and a 30-cent transaction fee. And most Pokemon buyers only buy one card at a time, so you will get hit with the transaction fee every single time. There's also a viral article I've seen floating around, and I've come across it multiple times now, titled, "I spent $100,000 flipping Pokemon cards during the pandemic. Here's what I learned." The guy who writes the article talks about how he developed a system, and in his first 2 weeks of flipping cards, he made a $4,000 profit. Now, they obviously had the money to risk as they started flipping the cards you'd think in the 20 to 30 range and very quickly jumped to a $100 to $500 card range. And at the time they posted, they had said they had spent over $103,000 on Pokemon cards, with a $112,000 profit so far, while they were sitting on $21,000 of unopened product, and they had about $50,000 worth of cards out to grade. Their biggest win that they wrote about was buying a $300 first edition Sabrina's Gengar, which graded as a PSA 10 and sold for $6,000. Their update at the end of 2020, they had said that they had made $40,000 in profit and still had about $40,000 in product to sell that was out to get graded. They also speculated that there are people out there making way more than them, but the fact is they are the exception themselves. This is not the norm. What they've done is amazing. They've basically created a second job and income for themselves. They're clearly good at finding the right deals and finding high quality cards, but these results would be hard to replicate. And the more people that see this and try to get in on it, if they become even slightly good, the less everyone will make. Because there is in fact a limited number of quality cards. I mean, generally hobbies aren't profitable unless you have an advantage, like you're a wholesaler, or a wholesaler gives you a discount, or you use methods that are unethical to alter your pull rates. Now, if you go online, you'll see online methods. Some I found suggested that you buy older cards to grade. I think this one's a little bit outdated now. Even posts from 3 years ago suggest that PSA grading is only $10 a card. Now, if you're not a member with PSA, it starts at $25 and jumps exponentially based on the estimated price of the card. So if you're buying the card first, you have to include the price of the card, getting that shipped to you, then grading, and it's $25, but you have to pay shipping also, or at least I did when I graded cards. Then you have to sell it on eBay, and you have to figure out what's going to cost to package it. And then eBay takes their cut. And then if you make a really good profit on it, are you going to have to pay taxes on that? Because now eBay makes you report your eBay earnings on your taxes every year. How much would you really make? Now, I've used SGC before, since I like that black border around the cards, and it's cheaper at $15 a card. But PSA is such a name brand. If a PSA card goes for $100, when I was selling the SGC cards, I was making maybe $85 or less on that same card that would have been worth $100 with PSA. So you have to think about what you're paying for when you're not getting the name brand service. And then there are large dealers that buy up cards as investments. One I found was an example for Charizard. I found a guy online who said that he used the Charizard V promo in the Champion's Path Elite Trainer boxes. He would buy the sealed packet for about $25. And then a graded PSA 10 was selling for about $200 at the time. The PSA 9 was $100. So he'd buy 10 of them for $250 and then send them to PSA to grade for another $100. This was obviously before the price increase. So he'd spend about $350. Now he could have $800 plus back on that investment. Worst case scenario, some of them came back 6, 7s, and 8s, and he'll sell them for a little bit more than what he paid to buy and grade them. But because they're sealed, they should be mostly 8 pluses on the cards. But now you'd have to account for spending over $250 on grading, plus shipping. And if you're doing this yourself, you have to find a card with good margins, that you can trade on and doesn't dip in value because the cheapest grading option takes months to get shipped back to you. And if the card value dips while it's gone, now you've just lost all that money. And on top of that, you have to get really good at identifying cards to buy on eBay, which can be very hard, especially since you're only looking at the pictures and they're not going to post an unflattering picture if they're a good seller. And if you're going to look at them in person in card shops, you have to realize you're going to pay a premium price, and they probably won't negotiate much with you. Another option is you could buy sealed product now and hold it hoping it goes up in value, basically just gambling on that chance. Not every set will skyrocket, and it could take years for it to even go up a little. If that's a risk you want to take, go for it. I'd rather have that money invested, though, where I don't have to worry about the product becoming damaged over time to any sorts of issues, humidity, storage issues, and if they do skyrocket in value, I don't have to worry about having a very expensive box of products in my house in case something goes wrong, or having to insure it, or all that other jazz that comes with holding on to a box that could be worth a ton of money. And if you're thinking at this point like me, you're saying, this guy's shooting down all these ideas for these English Pokemon cards. What if I just get some from Japan? Graded Japanese cards have great value here in America too. I could probably flip some singles too, since I can't just go out to the store and buy a pack. People probably see some value in them. They're not very abundant here in the States, and to that I say, be careful. Now there are a few reputable sellers online, but they sell it very fast, and now you're also shipping them from Japan, so the cost could add up. And when I started thinking about shipping costs, I thought, Amazon's in Japan. I bet the Japanese Amazon store ships to America, and I could probably get some cards through them. Well, then you find out there's wait lists to buy cards. And when you start looking in those wait lists at the comments, even the ones promoted by Amazon.jp, half the people in there are saying that they got scammed. They'll go in and buy something advertised as a booster box, but the picture on the ad is a booster box. And yes, they got 36 packs, but they were loose. And they were wrapped up in saran wrap. And when they opened those packs, they only had common cards. So someone's going through booster boxes and somehow pulling out all the good packs and reselling them on the market, hoping that some foreigner buys it and can't refund the money. And at that point, they cashed out. They pulled the rare cards and sent them to get graded or sold them as singles. And then they've saved their investment by not having to keep the common cards for themselves. So are there methods to make money on Pokemon cards? Yes. Would I recommend them as a good use of your time for a side hustle? I mean, if you don't have a monetized YouTube channel, or just have an absolute obsession with Pokemon cards, or just thoroughly enjoy opening packs, no. Especially if your plan is to open sealed product, because that's just gambling, and it's bad gambling. It's gambling with the odds heavily stacked against you. And just like any form of gambling, you aren't owed anything. If you buy 100 packs, you aren't owed the card you want. Just like if you spend $100 at a casino, you aren't owed a return. Buying one pack gives you the same chance as getting a card as buying 30 packs does. So chill with the booster boxes. If you enjoy it, if you have fun opening packs, if you like collecting, and you want to sell some stuff on the side, I say go for it. But when it starts making you mad, when it stops being fun, when you don't get those good pulls in a booster box, when you do get unlucky, it's time to stop. Remember, no one's forcing you to buy in the first place. This is just a hobby, and it's meant to be fun. Heck, these cards are meant to be used in a trading card game. You're supposed to build a deck of 60 cards and battle your friend, and instead they're being treated like commodities. They've become a financial asset, at least in the minds of a lot of people, whereas the cards that are actually worth crazy amounts of money, those assets, they're pretty much unattainable to the average person at this point. And I'm as big a fan as Pokemon as the next person. And yes, I do buy cards on a regular basis. If I'm walking through a store and I see a pack of cards at the front, I'll take a gamble, especially if there's a chase card in there that I like. And I know that the chance of me finding that Aerodactyl from Lost Origins is almost zero. So I hope you the best of luck on the next pack of cards you pull. But please, unless you're one of the very lucky few who has found some sort of niche in this business, do not go and spend your entire paycheck on Pokemon cards thinking you are going to make a great investment. Best of luck out there. Catch 'em all.